Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Angela Pitt. I am the MLA here for Airdrie East. I was first elected as the MLA for Airdrie in 2015, and now I have the honor of serving an expanded area here in Airdrie East. I'd like to welcome everyone joining us here in person on this classic fall morning in southern Alberta. And I'd also like to welcome everybody joining us here virtually. I would like to recognize the dignitaries who have joined us today for an announcement, a very exciting announcement that will affect the future transportation in Airdrie. From the Government of Alberta, I would like to recognize Premier Jason Kenney, Minister of Transportation Rick McIver, and Minister of Municipal Affairs Tracy Allard. I'd also like to recognize my legislative colleague and friend, MLA Peter Guthrie, MLA for Airdrie Cochrane. Now we have a number of representatives here today from the City of Airdrie. I'm happy to welcome His Worship Mayor Peter Brown, Councillor Daryl Bellick, Councillor Candace Colson, Councillor Ron Chapman, Councillor Al Jones, and Councillor Tina Petro. We also have a number of officials from the city's administration joining us here as well. Welcome to City Manager Paul Schultz, Director of Community Infrastructure Lauren Stevens, Leona Esau with Governmental Relations, Bob Neal, Manager of Engineering, and some of our communication staff, Aaron Murray and Jill Iverson. Finally, I would also like to welcome representatives from the Airdrie Chamber of Commerce, the President, Nikki Nordic, Vice President Chris McNichol, and Executive Director Marilyn Ailes. And I said that wrong. Sorry, Marilyn. The triple impact of the OPEC crisis, COVID-19, and the global pandemic that has followed in its wake have hit Alberta's economy hard. As we continue to take steps to reduce the spread of COVID-19, Alberta's government has a bold and ambitious plan to get us back on track. A plan to create tens of thousands of jobs now. A plan to build and diversify our economy. A plan to put Alberta back on the path to growth. Alberta's recovery plan. Today's announcement is another step in that plan. And as anyone who's lived in Airdrie for the last few years knows that this city has grown and grown and grown. It's one of the fastest growing municipalities in Alberta and in fact right across Canada, and is the 5th largest municipality in the province of Alberta. More Albertans and new Canadians are choosing Airdrie as the place that they want to live, work, and raise a family. Many have also chosen to live in Airdrie as they work in Calgary. Now, this has brought two results. First, a growing, prosperous, economically vibrant Airdrie that is family-friendly with an incredible community spirit. The second is traffic. Anyone who lives in Airdrie knows and will recognize that traffic jams at morning and evening rush hours as drivers get on and off the QE2. This congestion has cost not only in terms of time, but it presents a safety concerns for Airdrie residents. This has an added problem with the larger number of commercial vehicles that use the QE2 as one of Airdrie's primary trade corridors. Now, shortly we'll hear from Premier Jason Kenney, Minister McIver, and Mayor Brown about an important and very exciting piece of infrastructure that will improve the safe and efficient movement of people and goods through our city. A piece of infrastructure that will, during a critical time, create much needed jobs for Albertans. My friends, it is now my absolute honor and privilege to introduce to you our Premier, Jason Kenney.
Thank you so much, Angela, for, it may feel like winter out here now, but that was a very warm welcome. And I'm so excited to be here in the wonderful community of Airdrie for a great news announcement about creating jobs and building Alberta. We all know that in Alberta we've been hit by the triple whammy. the global pandemic, the biggest contraction in the world economy in nearly a century, and the collapse in energy prices. And a lot of Albertans are hurting as a result. That's why Alberta's government launched our recovery plan, a plan to build, to diversify, and to create tens of thousands of jobs, because we need to protect, at this time, not just lives, but also livelihoods. And that is why we are making historic investments in modernizing Alberta's infrastructure, building the architecture of our future economy, and creating jobs right here, right now. Thank you so much, Angela, for those kind words. Also great to be here with your Airdrie colleague, Peter Guthrie, Minister McIver, and Minister Allard. Thanks for being, you looks like you're going to freeze out here. But she's tough. She's from Grand Prairie. Mayor Brown, and to you and all of your city councillors and local residents, thank you for joining us. You know that Airdrie is one of the fastest growing communities in Alberta. It's a short hop to the Calgary International Airport, plus a relatively short commute to downtown Calgary. Airdrie sits, of course, on the Calgary-Edmonton corridor and is right on the Queen Elizabeth II Highway, Highway 2, and is just a few minutes from the Trans-Canada number 1. In short, this one-time railway town is growing into a major urban hub in southern Alberta. And every day, about 85,000 vehicles travel up and down this stretch of the QE2 highway around 40th Avenue. So getting onto the off-ramp during rush hour can sometimes be a nightmare. Drivers end up trapped in gridlock, so a commute that should take half the time and be fairly easy with a cup of coffee and just getting around town is sometimes something for drivers to dread. The nearly 7,000 commercial vehicles that use this stretch of highway get swallowed up in the same traffic snags and delays. That's not good. It's not efficient for our economy. And so, I am very pleased to be here in Airdrie to announce that as part of Alberta's recovery plan, Alberta taxpayers are investing up to $21.1 million to help build an interchange at Highway 2 and 40th Avenue here in Airdrie. This project will include building a bridge at 40th Avenue over the QE2 as well as access ramps. That'll create more than 300 direct and indirect jobs during construction. This is a cost-share partnership between Alberta taxpayers and Airdrie taxpayers, which is the city of Airdrie allocating around $62 million for a total estimated project cost in the range of $83 million. And I want to congratulate Mayor Brown and his council for their vision and persistence on this. And also, I think it's worth pointing out that I believe a portion of their municipal contribution to this important project is coming from provincial funding through MSI. And as part of our $10 billion Build Alberta program, a key part of our economic recovery plan, we've contributed an additional $500 million to municipalities to get shovels in the ground on job-creating infrastructure projects this year. And I like what I see here, where Airdrie is putting that to very good use. A project like this takes about 2 to 3 years to complete. And I understand construction will start next year, and traffic could be running on this overpass in 2024. Construction could get underway as early as I say, next year, once right-of-way acquisitions and utilities relocation are done. And that's what Minister McIver is responsible for. So when complete, the vehicles that make the trip along this part of the QE2 every day will travel faster and safer. Improved traffic flow onto and off the QE2 will support the development of Airdrie businesses, which, by the way, already get the benefit of this city's zero municipal business tax. Thank you, Airdrie, for leading the way amongst Alberta municipalities. Bravo. You know, I'm just going to call a policy audible here, Minister Allard. I think we should figure out a way to incentivize more municipalities to follow Airdrie's pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-business lead. Commercial traffic will benefit, speeding up Airdrie's links to markets. Folks will have more time to get their kids ready for the day, thanks to shorter commute, and of course, increased safety and reduced stress all around. This project, as I said, is part of the $10 billion devoted to building, to infrastructure, the largest single build program in Alberta history that we estimate is creating 50,000 good-paying construction jobs this year alone, and I suspect that many jobs again next year when they are so desperately needed. It's an example of how Alberta's recovery plan is making investments where and when it counts, getting people back to work, and raising our province's infrastructure to a 21st century standard. Alberta's recovery plan will create tens of thousands of jobs, and we're getting shovels in the ground right now. We are on the road to recovery. There are still many difficult months that lie ahead, but that recovery means diversification, it means prudent investment of tax dollars, and a never quit attitude, because we Albertans are resilient, we will bounce back, and this province will be stronger than ever. Let me close in thanking Mayor Brown and the City of Airdrie for being great partners on this. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, I called Mayor Brown and a number of other mayors and I said, how can we work together to protect the economy at this critical time? And it took Mayor Brown about a millisecond before he talked about this project. But I really have to give credit to a tireless Airdrie representative, Angela Pitt, who has been, well, to coin a phrase, she's been a bit of a pit bull over this project. She has been absolutely relentless. In fact, when I see her coming down the hall on the ledge, I quickly dodge out of the way because I know I'm going to get lobbied about this project. She has been a relentless voice for this city, for her constituents, for this project, for these jobs, and for this infrastructure that paves the way into the future. Thank you to Angela, and I look forward to being out here with you, the mayor and everyone else, when we cut the ribbon to open this overpass in a couple of years. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that great announcement, Premier. This is a great day. I'm very happy to be here with our incredible Airdrie representatives, Angela Pitt and Peter Guthrie, and our Minister of Municipal Affairs, Tracy Allard, and of course our Premier, to talk about this new interchange to connect 40th Avenue to the QEII highway. I don't have to tell anybody here how quickly Airdrie's grown over the past few years. Airdrie's population has become a city of more than 70,000 people, and to that recently expanded city limits, a regional market of about 1.5 million people, and a growing commercial hub. This is where the action is, and that means more families and more drivers on all roads, including that one. I know many folks living in Airdrie make the daily commute to and from Calgary. That's evident by the increase in traffic at this location. Traffic, as the Premier said, has grown to 85,000 vehicles a day with 7,000 commercial vehicles, all in this short stretch. And that, as increased traffic, has meant congestion. It's meant safety concerns, and it means that Airdrie residents get to take their kids to school or take themselves to work at a very busy place, in a very busy way, and this project should make that shorter, safer, more pleasant. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from MLA Pitt and Peter Guthrie about roads in this area. I don't know what it is in the water here, but your Airdrie representatives in the Legislative Assembly are aggressive in a positive way. They don't let us, folks like the Premier and I and Minister Allard, have any peace, and that's because they're doing their jobs well, advocating for the people that they represent. And the premier made an exclamation point on that today, and I certainly can't argue. And that's why I'm happy to be here with the Premier and with our colleagues to announce this 40th Avenue bridge and access to QE2. Alberta taxpayers will contribute up to $21.1 million. As said, construction will begin right after my ministry gets the utilities relocated and the land acquisitions done. Work to acquire those rights of way by Alberta Transportation is underway. The construction is expected to be completed and the interchange open to traffic by 2024. Building this interchange will improve the quality of life. It will help reduce congestion not only here, but on Yankee Valley Boulevard and Veterans Boulevard within Airdrie, and on some of the internal roads that are experiencing a lot of backup and inconvenience. So I guess to probably incorrectly coin a movie, if you build it, they will come. Airdrie's doing both. First they had the business and development come, now we're building it, and now more will come. So this is, I think Airdrie got it frontwards and backwards, and they got it right in both cases. So congratulations on that. This interchange will help people get where they get to go. And I will say, the mayor, his council, and the staff here in the city of Airdrie have all worked as a team to get us to this day, and I congratulate them for that. Over 300 jobs will be involved in the construction of this project. And in this area, including probably the ground we're standing on, hundreds, if not thousands of more jobs. So there's a lot to be happy about today. Again, I'd like to thank MLAs Pitt and Guthrie for their advocacy. I'd like to thank the Premier for being here. And I would like to now invite the Mayor of this great city to come and say a few words. Thanks, Peter.
Good morning, everyone. And first of all, I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge that today's events taking place on the traditional territory of Treaty 7 at the city of Airdrie is also part of the Métis Nation Region 3. Welcome. This is a significant day for our community, more than you know. We've been advocating for this bridge for almost a decade now and been working toward it since I think back in 2004 when it was first brought to light through provincial efforts and our community. I want to first of all, Premier, I want to thank you for being here today, but first of all for your leadership throughout the unbelievably challenging times we all face in Alberta and around the world, and I want to commend you on your leadership. I don't know how you sleep at night, but from my perspective, you're doing a great job, and continue to keep that going, and wish the best for you and your team. I also want to thank you, and I believe you have a Minister of Getting Things Done, Larry. I want to thank, I don't know if Larry's here today, but I want to thank you and he, and of course Angela, for their efforts in making certain that today actually is happening. Minister McIver, you know we've been talking about this since I think back with the Conservatives in 11 when you were the Minister of Transportation, and then this would not have happened without your support. So we really want to sincerely thank you and your team for, actually if Mark's here, I want to thank him. He was my counselor for many sessions when I phoned him when I didn't know who to talk to about different, he'll know what I'm talking about if he's listening. But I do want to sincerely thank you, and we really appreciate all your efforts. Minister Allard is back there, and I want to congratulate the Premier, because respectfully to all his colleagues, I couldn't imagine a better Minister of Municipal Affairs to manage our municipalities going forward. No. But with what the challenging times that we face, I know that she's going to bring something to the table that is really needed, and I'm really excited to work with her. I want to thank Angela, our great MLA, and Peter, both for their advocacy. I know Angela, in August I probably talked to her more than my wife. And my wife was actually happy about that, to be quite honest with you. But I do want to say she did an exceptional job. This has been a true partnership. So our community is investing a significant amount, as the Premier said, but we believe it's the right thing to do. When and they're going to see the numbers. We have an economic impact study done recently on this bridge, specifically this bridge. We're looking at $3 billion over the next 30 years of investment in our community. And you should hear a round of applause for that, because that's what we're striving for in our community around the province and through the Premier's leadership. So I really want to thank him. I want to thank the community, and I want to thank my council for their vision When we built this bridge, we were uncertain of the future, but we wanted to make certain that our community had, our first responders had access over the rails, that we could move people around the community safer, more efficiently, more effectively, and also welcome the region. And that's the key component of this bridge. Is this isn't just for Airdrie, this is for Airdrie and area. So we're very excited to welcome the new investors, the entrepreneurs, the businesses. They're going to want to relocate to our community because, as the Premier says, there is zero business tax, but also we're open and listening to better ways of doing things in order to entice investment in our community. So very excited about this new bridge. I believe that safety is obviously our number one concern in the community. And for me, safety and mobility is key. And for our council, and again, I do want to recognize their foresight. We did detailed design on this bridge probably 6 years ago. I think it was around $6 million investment, and that was certainly helped paid for by the province at that time and also the federal government. But we did the work knowing that we were going to get this day today. And I was just so excited to be here on behalf of my council colleagues. We want to welcome all of you again, and thank you for being here for such a great announcement. And Premier, you're welcome to come anytime. Ministers, please. And thank you. This is just an awesome day for everyone. And I apologize. One more thing. You can freeze the media. I apologize. I want to thank our administration. I see Stevens here and Paul here and Leon and the gang. Bob, if I missed somebody, Jerry Lau's here from Alberta Transportation. This has been an effort from everyone to get to this day. So just sincere thanks to everyone involved. It's just finally great to be here and so excited for this investment and the great city of Airdrie is moving forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we get started on the media Q&A, I'd like to point out to the media on site that there is a mic to your left. Please use that to ask your questions. I'd ask that everyone, including those on the line, limit themselves to one question. We have a lot of people waiting today. So go ahead at the mic.
I'm Scott. I'm from the Airdrie City View newspaper. My question is about the announcement in the last budget for an interim off-ramp, and the funding for that, I believe, was about $10 million. So I'm just wondering if that money is being reallocated towards the whole project.
Yeah, I would say to you, this is the evolution of that promise. We've had ongoing discussions, as you talked about in my remarks, with Mayor of Airdrie, his staff and their council have been big advocates, MLAs Pitt and Guthrie, and this is what that promise evolved into, is what we're announcing today.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Premier Mike Symington, CBC. The Premier. Thank you, Premier. This morning, UCP political staff were informed of a 7% pay cut. Could you tell us what's behind that decision and how much is expected in savings?
So last year, we kept our election commitment to cut MLA salaries by 5% and the Premier's salary by 10% to lead by example during tough fiscal times. And today we've expanded that to include a 7% reduction for the political staff who work for me and ministers in our government that we expect will save nearly $1 million. So it's not a huge savings, but these symbols are important. We are facing a great fiscal reckoning as a province, and we're going to have to find ways to reduce the cost of government. And Albertans understand that. The COVID global recession has cost us 25% of our revenues, and we're now we've got a deficit of over $24 billion. So we're going to ask everybody to make sacrifices so that we can live within our means in the future, and that has included both elected officials, MLAs and ministers, as well as the folks that work directly with them as political staff.
Go ahead.
Morning, Premier. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about the upcoming U.S. election and the future of Keystone. Mr. Biden has promised that he will kill the project, and is there any contingency plan Alberta has?
Well, first of all, we are working with many people in the United States who support this project, including many people in the Democrat Party. Recently, TC Energy signed an agreement with many of the largest building trades unions in the United States who are involved in and strongly support the project. We hope and expect that should there be a change of administration following next month's U.S. election, that those unions will speak in favor of the project. TC Energy has also signed a recent agreement with First Nations, both on the Canadian and U.S. side of the border, supporting the project. We're in constant contact with American senators and congressmen on both sides of the aisle, governors and state legislators, overwhelming support along the pipeline route. And as well as the Government of Canada, we appreciate the support of Ambassador Kirsten Hillman in Washington, D.C., and the federal government for Keystone XL. It would, I think, send a very, very negative message. Should a future U.S. administration cancel a project that's partly owned by a Canadian government, I think it would really undermine the single most important trade relationship that the United States has in the world. And finally, we're going to point out, should there be a change of administration, that the United States needs a safe, secure, reliable source of energy for decades to come. The U.S. refineries on the Gulf Coast they require huge amounts of heavy crude oil. And if it's not coming from Alberta, then it's coming from the socialist dictatorship and OPEC country of Venezuela. So we think we have a very strong argument to make. Of course, we're not going to interfere in the U.S. election. It's for Americans to decide who their president is and who represents them in Congress. But whoever is elected will be making these points as strongly as we possibly can. That's one of the reasons we appointed a new senior representative of Alberta to Washington, James Rajat, who's working around the clock on this issue.
Okay, we'll go to the phones now. Operator, can you please put through the first caller?
It's getting chilly out here.
Go ahead, Rick. I hope you can hear me there in the cold and Airdrie.
We can.
Back to the 7% pay cut for your political staff, Premier. To what degree is this signal as your government is entering negotiations and looking at the wages of other people, a much larger group who are on the Alberta taxpayer payroll, and are you prepared personally, if you decide to go this route with others, when the protesters march on the legislature of everything under the sun?
Well, let me start by reminding folks that MLAs and ministers have been leading by example. Not only did all MLAs take a voluntary 5% pay cut last year, and I took a 10% cut, that's on top of a 5% pay cut for Alberta MLAs under Jim Prentice's government in 2014. So basically, MLAs they've taken a 10% pay cut. The Premier's job pays 15% less than it did 5 years ago. Both of those cuts, I would stress, made under Conservative governments, not under NDP government. And I'll also remind people, there is no MLA pension plan, there is no severance. Those things were taken away a long time ago. So I believe that and now with the political staff taking a 7% cut, which is very, very significant, we are doing what the public expects of us, which is to lead by example. And what I would say to the good people who work in the broader government sector in Alberta is we value them, the work they do, the services they deliver. But all of us are in this together. The Alberta economy is 20% smaller today than it was 5 years ago. Half of that was the economy shrinking pre-COVID, and half of that has been this global recession. We have I think the highest unemployment in Canada, certainly with the exception of Newfoundland, that we probably have a real unemployment rate of 15%, but that masks the reality of the hundreds of thousands of private sector families who are making do with less, who have seen huge cuts in their income. I mean, I have friends I have one friend who works for an energy company who's just gone through his third round of wage rollbacks, and he's a mid-level employee making 1/3 less than he did a few years ago. So here's the point. With 25% of Alberta government revenues disappearing because of the global recession, with private sector families making less and less, with a huge number of private sector people who have experienced layoffs, we expect everyone to play a part in helping to get our finances back on track, gradually and carefully in a prudent way. That has to start at the top. It starts with me, with MLAs, and the folks that work directly with us in the legislature.
Okay, we'll take one more from the phone and we'll come back to the floor. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Next is Chris Varco with the Calgary Herald. Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, this is a question for the Premier. Premier, last December, your government began consultations with the petroleum producers and rural municipalities on revamping the way that oil and gas properties are assessed. And you said in the summer that you thought the linear assessment system was completely out of whack. Two questions. Can you tell me, has a decision been made by your government on this issue? And should petroleum producers and rural municipalities expect to see the revamped system in place for 2021 tax year that's going to reduce taxes on these properties?
Sure. So first of all, when we came to office 18 months ago, we saw a number of our great Alberta gas companies teetering on the brink of failure, of bankruptcy. In fact, a couple did go under in the spring and summer of last year. And so that's one of the reasons we appointed an associate minister for natural gas, Dale Nally, to implement our natural gas strategy, part of which was the service protocol that helped increase the price of natural gas. We also provided about $25 million in retroactive property tax relief. We continued that into this year. But a number of those key Alberta job creators in the gas industry approached us and said that they were spending more on linear property taxes than they were spending on everything else combined, their entire payroll and all of their operations. And many were pointing out that they were paying more in property tax than the actual value of their assets. And then they pointed out that a lot of Alberta companies were paying as much as 20% more for identical wells in Alberta than they were in BC, or as much as 10 times more in Saskatchewan. That's why we tasked the Minister of Municipal Affairs, then KC Madu, to work with municipalities and the energy companies to see if we could find a solution that would help ensure a future for those energy companies. And we did consultations, and I'm now going to hand it over to Minister Allard, because I'm not quite sure if she's made a formal public announcement on this, but she knows better than I.
Well, good morning. Thank you for the question. Yes, we are working closely with both our municipal partners and industry to find a solution going forward. And what we're solving for is viability and sustainability. The last thing we want to see is assessment happening on zero because everybody's gone. We need to have a plan for the future, and we do have a plan for the future. I've said many times to municipal partners in this last 6 weeks since I was appointed to cabinet that revenue covers a multitude of sins. When the money's flowing, we can just throw money at problems. We don't have money to throw at problems anymore. That's the good news and the bad news. The bad news is the money's dried up. The good news is we're going to address those problems. We will work together to solve this, and you'll hear from our ministry shortly, as early as next week, about the plan for the immediate future and to go forward. Thank you for the question. Thank you, Premier.
Okay, we'll come back to the floor for one more. Go ahead.
Hi, Leah Murray from Air 106. Just flipping back to 40th Avenue quickly here. We've seen the city work on this for decades. Countless city staff, countless councillors, MLAs as well. We saw funding for an interim ramp in February. So what was the turning point in actually funding the full interchange or partial interchange and bridge project?
Well, I'll take this and hand it off to the mayor, anybody else who wants. frankly, I think the turning point was the crisis we're in. I called Mayor Brown back in April when we were at the beginning of the COVID crisis and economic catastrophe. And I called a bunch of mayors. I said, what can we do together to get some people back to work during this crisis? And the mayor said, this project's been on the books for many years. City's willing to put up some real coin. We need the province to be there. But also the MLAs, Angela and Peter were just relentless about this. And we decided as a government, frankly, that we had to do something dramatic in the crisis. So we ramped up our capital budget for projects like this by over $3 billion additional from what we planned to $10 billion this year. That gave us the money that we could invest in projects like this. This is one of about, I think, 8 what we call provincial strategic projects within a $1.1 billion envelope that we are funding across the province. So I guess it was the crisis that accelerated this. Airdrie was well prepared with its plans, and that was the key part, because we were looking for shovel-ready projects. We weren't looking for 2, 3, 4 years of planning and talking and all of that. We wanted shovels in the ground, and Airdrie had a project for us that would do that. Mayor, do you want to compliment that?
Thank you, Premier. I don't have a lot to add to that other than to say that I think it came down to the math at the end of the day and the fact that we were ready to go. And we were prepared as a community to recognize the importance of this piece of infrastructure. And we were able to find the dollars to make it happen. And again, everything, I think the future of municipalities and the government of Alberta, and I think hopefully across the country, is real true partnerships. And that's where it's going to have to go. And I don't have anything really else to add other than just thank everybody involved with pressing this agenda forward. Thank you.